Welcome back to What You're Reading Wednesdays. Thanks for tuning in and spending time with us. Remember when we challenged ourselves to step outside our comfort zones and try a book in a new genre? Today we're reporting back with our experiences. What do you typically read? What book genre took you outside of your comfort zone? And what did you think of it?
Okay, I typically read fiction and historical fiction. And so I was given manga to read, which is Japanese comics. And so I read Rose of Versailles. And I did like it. I really liked it. It took me a little bit of a while to get used to the right to left reading. But I liked it very much. And now I have to wait to get volume 2.
I usually read fiction, YA, lighter stuff, and I read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, which is a true crime story of the Golden State Killer. It was beautifully written. Michelle writes very well, and it was very well researched. And it was part memoir, kind of, her story of her obsession with finding the guy who did this, and which I was not expecting. So I did like it. It did keep me up at night, kind of paranoid about things.
Hey, so romance books really get the short end of the stick when they're like referred to as like women's fiction, and doesn't take into account that they're one of the most lucrative like marketing areas in publishing. I made a bad choice. I was given like 2 options and I Googled them. I was like, oh, this one looks less corny. It looks like the one that, might be like a treatise on like loss and all that. And it ended up being really triggering. One of the characters was raped. I had to stop reading. It just felt like they were using this as like a plot point, which isn't something that I love. I read Love and Other Words by, oh gosh, what's her name?
Christina Horn.
Yeah, it's not what I thought I was going to be getting into. And when they made this huge build up to like the reveal of like what went wrong, and it was that, and it wasn't, I didn't finish it, but I felt like it wasn't treated with the way it maybe should have been. I felt like it was used to like drive a wedge and like create angst and all of this, and I guess I wasn't prepared for that in a romance novel, but it was very fluidly written. I can see why the authors have so many New York Times bestsellers.
So I typically read, you guys know I'm a self-help junkie, and I love any kind of spiritual book, uplifting, inspirational, all of that. I sprinkle in some fiction too. But so my assignment was fantasy, which was totally different. And I realized, I've read Harry Potter, and, I've definitely dabbled in the genre before. But my assignment I chose Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I sometimes zone out for audiobooks, like struggle to really pay attention. This one had my attention the whole way through. So I would say I definitely enjoyed it. It was a lot darker than I'm used to. So I don't know, I think I might have to keep going because it's definitely interesting.
I normally read romance and self-help, spiritual. It's kind of normally my normal avenue. So I got to read history. And the book that was recommended by Aaron, When Books Went to War by Molly Giptil Manning. So it was a great book, first of all. So Aaron, thank you. A lot of eye-opening things for me happened in this book, particularly because it talked about military libraries, and having come from that genre of our profession before. I spent many years in that profession, and so it's really, really exciting to see how military libraries impacted the war, and how the war was not only about, the injustices that happened, but also about the ideology of democracy and our right to read whatever we want to read. Thank you again, Aaron. I stayed up to 3 o'clock in the morning reading it.
Okay, so the thing with comics and manga is that it's a medium and not a genre, and I actually read nearly any genre you could think of within those mediums. That being said, these with standard books, I generally gravitate to ones that have a fantastical element to them. The genre or genres I was given to read for this challenge were contemporary and romance. And Tori and Audrey were kind enough to recommend Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And I feel like it was very much set up like a stereotypical rom-com, in that the first son of the United States, Alex, and Prince of England, Henry, have a kerfuffle during the royal wedding of Henry's older brother. And to save face for both the royal family and the first family, they have to like fake being buddies in public. And that kind of goes from there. And it was very cute. I don't read romance that much in general unless it's kind of a subplot. And even then, it's always presented as a kind of slow burn. So I was like pleasantly surprised that that wasn't the case for this. It was just cute, and it just kept getting cuter. And I liked it. It was a good, like, feel good, wholesome kind of romance.
So I am gonna be honest, I did not finish my assignment. I typically read contemporary, just fiction, romance, YA sometimes, and I usually do read true crime too. And my assignment was sci-fi. And while I do read that sometimes, like I read the Wayward Children series and I've read Harry Potter, I was assigned or recommended, and I chose to read Ready Player One, Ernest Cline. I got through about half of it before I realized that I did not like it. So I am really sorry, everyone. I failed this assignment. I wasn't paying attention. It was the first chapter was the only thing that held my interest. And then the rest of it was just over my head. It was a lot of video game jargon, and I'm not into video games at all, unless it's like Mario Kart on the Wii. That's about it. But it was, so if you like video games, there's a lot of callbacks to video game consoles, video games, and there's also just a lot of, it's like, I didn't expect it to be so high fantasy. If like that's what I was reading it as, and I could not get into it, and I apologize. I gave the 15-hour audiobook 8 hours of my life, and I'm of the mind that if you are not enjoying a book, you do not have to finish it, because life is too short, there's too many books, all those cliches. That was me yesterday when I was trying to get through this thing. So
would you read a book from this genre again?
I definitely think I would. When I went into fantasy in this kind of dark world, that was the opposite of a comfort read really for me. So maybe not during a pandemic, but it did definitely take me away. It was a good escape. Like Audrey said, you're going to travel when you do a fantasy story.
I don't know if I'm really a nonfiction reader. I love watching Dateline with my dad. But when it comes to like spending my time reading it, or in this case, listening to it, there were parts where I just could not focus.
Erin hit it out the park this time. I would give it another try. I'm not a big World War person, or, and it's kind of like, which is interesting because, having grown up in Germany and things like that. But I was just really pleasantly surprised that I really enjoyed this book. I think when I was in like the first chapter, and I was like, oh, it talks about military libraries. Well, dang, I grew up military, and I worked in a military library, and I was like, ooh. So like I said, hit on a lot of notes really quickly for me, and it just took off from there.
Yes. And I forgot to mention that this is about Marie Antoinette during the French, but prior to the French Revolution. So I would read it again because the story isn't finished, so I want to finish it. I would have to be very selective about which manga I did try, because I know some have some really far out kind of stories and stuff, but as long as I get a good recommendation from Justine, thank you, I would try it again, yes.
First of all, my cat has a death grip on my foot, so I'm sorry if I'm making some weird faces. Secondly, I don't know. I require several things from this genre, and the first is like a healthy character dynamic between like the main characters. The second is like I have to like the characters to really give a crap about their journey. And if that's not happening, I mean, why even bother? And I want a plot that goes beyond the relationship itself. I really don't have a lot of interest in just like the gravitational pull between these people. And that's just a personal preference, I think. And then I really want no explicit smut. It can be difficult to find that, but imply it all you want. But I was raised in a puritanical society, and I cannot handle reading it. I don't want to. I'm gonna blush the entire time. It's just not. It does not jangle my keys.
No. You just want a fade to black situation.
Exactly.
So, like I said before, I do read sci-fi, and I tend to enjoy the stuff that I pick out because I'm very picky about the sci-fi. So I can't say I wouldn't try again. It's just that this one wasn't for me. I'll probably stick to my contemporary romance. Unlike Erin, for somebody who lacks romance in her real life, I definitely seek it out in a book. That's probably why.
I think I would read from the genre again. Definitely when the mood strikes, and if I have one that I think I'll enjoy. I don't know. I'm not always like, I need a romance in my life kind of girl. But this one, I mean, it didn't surprise me because I heard good things. And I'm like, that looks really cute. And I was glad that I wasn't disappointed.
Mary,
Yes.
what did you learn from this experiment, and are there other genres you'd like to try?
I learned that I am open to reading other things, even though I sometimes maybe think I'm not. As far as trying other genres, I do read kind of across the genres a lot of times. I don't really have a favorite. I don't have a favorite author I follow. I try to read across different things. I don't read a lot of horror, which I would try to. I've read some young adult horror.
Well, my goal this year was to read more books outside of the comfort zone, and this one definitely took me there. Next, I'm going to steer in the other direction, and if maybe I'll try one of those westerns that I love. My friend says that I like to read dad fiction, so maybe that's what I'll do.
Well, I'm definitely open to exploring different genres, and doing that this week, I think, is like the first step forward to doing that, because I usually don't.
I have read sci-fi. It's not my go-to. I'm very picky, so as long as I find the right book, I would read it again.
What I learned, honestly, is, learning about history, learning about where you've come from, or learning about, how things happen. I know for me, just learning how base libraries and military libraries kind of got started. As someone that, we believe in non-censorship and all that stuff, like, I'm like, wow, like, it opened my eyes to, have a more broader view of the world. And I think that's always the purpose of books, is to broaden your horizons and broaden your worldview on everything. And that knowing not everyone is like you.
It just drives the point to step outside your comfort zone from time to time and try something new. Mm-hmm. I think I want to try more contemporary reads in the future. And I also want to read some memoirs. I think there are people that I'm interested in, like, learning more about. So
True confession time. What's your next read, and are you going back to your usual genre?
Right before I started Ready Player One, I was reading The Grace Year. That's like YA dystopian, very like Hunger Games meets Handmaid's Tale. It was a lot. And then I just got in the mail speaking of Hunger Games, the prequel that just came out. And so I want to start that. But right now, last night, as like a palate cleanser, I started reading Not the Girl You Marry by Andy J. Christopher, I believe is the author's name. That is a romance. So yeah, I just went crawling back to my trusty faves.
Okay, I have my next read picked out. It is called Darling Rose Gold by Stephanie Roble. This one sounds really intriguing. It's fiction, and this girl is like allergic to everything, or so she thinks, and comes to find out that her mother has been lying to her all these years, that she really isn't allergic to everything. So that's all I know. so it sounds really intriguing to me. So that's the one I'm going to start next.
I have a handful of manga left to read that I want to clear out of my pile, but then I think I'm going to read a few books I've been meaning to for the longest time. One being A Darker Shade of Magic by Victoria Schwab.
I'm going right back to the book that I'm halfway through, which is Jen Hatmaker's Fierce, Free, and Full of Fire, which is my spiritual, inspirational genre that I love.
I'm gonna dive right back into like Justine said, some books I've been meaning to read for a while. One of which I've had checked out from the library since before the pandemic. So like, let's get it done. And that one's James Mahaffey's Atomic Accidents: A History of Nuclear Meltdowns and Disasters from the Ozark Mountains to Fukushima. And it's gotten really good reviews. One of our coworkers, Tanya, actually suggested that I read a fantasy novel called Gideon the Ninth. So
Yes,
that
I read
one,
that.
yeah, that one I'm really looking forward to.
I'm gonna go back to reading Becoming. I stopped it to do our experiments, and I think I'm gonna go back to it. It was kind of a slow read at beginning, so I'm hoping that it picks up. Everybody says it does, but I'm trying to get through to where it picks up at. Gets a little bit more exciting, yay. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to that read. I did watch the Netflix documentary, so I was like, ooh. So yeah, so definitely enjoyed that.
So I finished my book for this week at like 5:30, 6 o'clock last night. And by that evening, I had Harry Potter open and I was reading Sorcerer's Stone.
That wraps up this episode of Whatcha Reading Wednesdays. Thanks again for joining us. As always, let us know if you have specific requests or topic ideas. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Stay well, stay home, stay curious. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.